What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my co-host Dave Martin. Dave, what's going on, man?
Black Superman is what's going on. News. Ta-Nehisi Coates, DC doing new things like they do.
Yeah. Do you want Cavill back? Or do you
I'm not
really want
anti-Cavill. I'm not super pro Cavill. I just want them to make more movies. They only make a
Yeah.
handful at a time, you know.
Ta-Nehisi Coates. I think I know him mostly for his famous book that, of course, I'm blanking. I think it's
Case for Reparations.
I think there's another one that was like letters to my son or something like that, or something along those lines. That was very popular back in June when the George Floyd protests came about. People were pretending to be much more invested into the plight of the Black Americans, which is sad to say. I hope people actually are taking it seriously and doing the reading that they highlighted and said that they would. But yeah, I mean, how are you feeling about this Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman?
Well, he does have a history with writing comic books, both Superman and especially Black Panther, which was quite widely celebrated. Because he's such an intelligent guy and he is coming from a comic background, it's actually a really tantalizing premise to me. So, I forgot the name. Was it Kellen Ellis, something like that? There is a Black Superman character apart from Clark Kent in the comics. I imagine they would go that route. It's not going to be Black Clark Kent, so it does exist. Kind of like how Miles Morales exists next to Peter Parker, stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, Snyder Cut's coming in a few weeks, but there's no unified plan for DC. They're just kind of taking pitches, making good movies, figuring out what they're making. And I don't really mind that. If the movies are good, the movies are good. I'm okay with that. One-off stuff like the Joker and the Batman, they're fine with me. I don't need everything to connect. So if you have a good idea for this kind of Superman movie, which apparently they've been trying to develop for a while. I know Michael B. Jordan initially pitched this when he first got involved with WB. So interesting, but hopefully it goes through, because I know Superman fans have wanted more Superman for a while. And think about it, Cavill has played Superman 3 times in coming up on 8 years. 4 times if you count the 2 Snyder Cut. This is Justice League versions, but still, you would have thought there'd be way more instances,
Yeah, no, I agree. Just a quick note: the article I was referring to is named "Letter to My Son," but the book I was thinking about, and I regret getting confused, is "Between the World and Me." That was the book that was sold out everywhere back in June. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think as we move into this next phase of Marvel, and we're going to be talking WandaVision next week, wrapping up, and then preparing for Winter Soldier, and then Loki and everything. It's kind of like, what is the sphere that DC can take over in these in the superhero world, especially as we've talked about. We want Marvel to continue to be weird and move into genre, and I think that's exactly what DC needs to do, but almost like the extreme. Like, they're making the Robert Pattinson whatever, like detective Batman
year 2
thriller.
Batman.
Perfect. Go with something like that. Give me a Black Superman story. Just keep putting things out there that are interesting stories, taking looks at the world that maybe you're not getting with Marvel, because it does need to kind of carve out its own section. If they're just doing these genre or special story superhero movies, I think that's probably their best bet to carve out something a little different and unique. But does Superman even interest you really as a character, though?
I think this is definitely more interesting to the average person than normal Superman. I know Superman fans believe that Superman is interesting, and the flaws of Superman are more evident in comics, and from what I understand. But he's kind of like Captain America, right? He can be a little vanilla and sanitized depending on how you're telling that story. So I understand that. But he's also like super name brand. You'd think you could be successful with Superman, right? Like, figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah. I think his just how powerful he is can be a tough,
Yeah.
tough one
That's the thing with
sometimes. But
DC characters in general are just at a different power level than
yeah,
baseline Marvel. You know.
but I think I would be interested to see this, like a black Superman, and how like the racial aspect of that is kind
Yeah.
of handled with
Hmm.
a largely racist country having this superhero who is black and figuring that out. So there's probably a lot to dig into there. And if someone is going to make a successful Superman movie, I think Ta-Nehisi Coates is definitely a good person to helm that. Dave, though, we have a packed show, so I wanted to move forward with some news, and we have quite a bit of news today to dig into. Let's start with K-pop because we've been talking about it a lot recently, and Spotify recently came to South Korea and was, I think it just last month, has been a new venture there. And then all of a sudden, March 1st rolls around, and a lot of K-pop artists are being taken off the platform because the contract with Kakao M, the production company or the label behind these people, these groups, did not was not able to work out a contract with Spotify. What's going on here, man?
Yeah. So Spotify has expanded to I think 80 new markets in the past month or so. South Korea started on February 1st, and it's definitely probably the most notable of these new markets for Spotify because I believe it's the sixth largest music listening market. So obviously a big deal. Just K-pop aside, there's a lot of people that pay to listen to music in South Korea, and Spotify obviously has hundreds of millions of listeners and subscribers, both free and paid. So this is like their plan to build the empire even more. I think they were touting that uh, there's up to a billion new potential customers or something, right? Because now they're in more territories. But in the process, as you said, yeah, there's you know a music distribution label that is no longer on Spotify. I think it's important to just note that uh, this is worldwide, where this whole label is now off Spotify. These artists' music were available worldwide on Spotify and not in South Korea because Spotify had just gotten to South Korea. Like that part was coming, but now worldwide, these artists from this label are wiped off Spotify, the largest music streaming platform in the world. And you can look at the stats. If their fans are sharing them on Twitter. I'm not super familiar with a lot of Kakao M artists. IU, Zico, Epic High. There's a lot of them. Um, I think 37.5% of the songs in the top 400 yearly song chart over in Korea. About 37.5% of those songs are on this label. So it's not like your
Crazy.
SMs and your YGs and your BTS and the big hit. Like it's not like the big stuff we've been talking about lately, but it's still a huge mainstream
Hmm.
aspect of the K-pop industry. And they're gone worldwide. And
Insane.
it's I mean, obviously, it really sucks, right? Because it sucks for their fans, and it sucks for those artists because that's the way music works now, right? Is you are beholden to corporate behemoths, whether it's Spotify or Apple, if you're in the West, or now increasingly many other places, or um, in South Korea where
Melon.
Melon was the leading competitor there. Like, no matter where you are, you are beholden to these people continuing to allow you to pay for access, right? You don't own anything anymore. Most people are very happy with this arrangement because usually it's no big deal. But in this instance, the artists are getting screwed because what people are going to go buy this CD, maybe buy it on iTunes if it even doesn't have a CD. Like there's really not a
Hmm.
lot of alternatives. And in the process, these artists are losing traction, losing marketing. They're not on playlists. They're just losing their chance to grow. And it sucks that corporate squabbling between obviously a huge behemoth like Spotify and then obviously still big corporate entity in Kakao M can't work it out, and the artists are what lose out in the process.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about Kakao M's angle here, and potentially they really are trying to just bolster Melon and screw Spotify over. But I I think about it, and I think there's probably going to be something that's worked out eventually here. I think there's just too much money that Kakao M is probably leaving on the table by not having these artists on Spotify. Whether it's strictly for the money they would make off streaming, the artist wouldn't make much, but Kakao M would make quite a bit. Or the popularity, the global reach that these artists are able to get on a platform like Spotify, just too appealing. So something will definitely, I believe, get worked out probably in the near future. But
Yeah.
um, you know, I just don't know if I really see the angle and where Kakao M is really gonna work it out here. Spotify is just too big, in my opinion, for them for this. What do you think they're trying to really take away here?
Yeah, I mean, it's just squabbling over
Money.
fees, right? It's like how Roku and HBO didn't work it out
Mm,
for HBO Max for a while. It's just figuring out the new arrangement. But the fact that they would let it lapse worldwide, let
not a good
alone
look.
not agree to be on Spotify when it launches South Korea. I understand that. Like South Korea just got Spotify a month ago, but to have it just the whole agreement, whole licensing agreement lapse is pretty tough stuff.
It
But yeah,
is.
it'll be worked out. They'll figure it out. Both sides are putting out statements and stuff, but I mean the process just these groups are don't exist to potential new fans if they happen to only use Spotify.
Hmm.
And that's a hard thing to get behind because that's the way music discoverability works,
Yeah.
unfortunately, is you are a slave to the algorithm. So it's it'll be worked out in time, but it's definitely not like the news you expect to see because you'd think everyone just get in bed with each other, keep making the money the way music
Yeah.
streaming is going these days, but not right now.
Yeah, I hope they get it figured out, mostly for the artist's sake, because they're the ones that get screwed. I could give two shits about Spotify or Kakao M, but so is the business. Unfortunately, maybe we'll see more people doing what Taylor Swift did and re-recording their own music someday. Who knows? But let's move forward and talk about Paramount Plus, formerly CBS All Access. Uh, Dave, I mean, there's a lot to dig through here, a lot of announcements here. I wanted to ask you, out of everything that was put out there as Paramount Plus is, rebranding CBS All Access, what is most appealing to you in the announcements that came out?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of one singular thing, killer app type stuff, it's obviously the Halo show, which has been moved from
Mm,
Showtime to Paramount Plus. Showtime also under the Viacom CBS umbrella. Um, that's really appealing to me. I think that's a really smart move too. If you're pushing this new platform that you want to be bigger than Showtime,
hmm.
that makes sense to me. That's really cool. That's coming next year. Um, they've, I think that's nearly done filming. Bokeem Woodbine's involved, but Halo in general, with the big budget, that's a really tantalizing, big sci-fi IP show. So I hope that's good. Yeah, let's go.
Oh, yeah. Let's get the let's just get the soundtrack out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. Just kind of digging through it. I think probably the thing that interested me the most was this Avatar Studios
Yeah,
announcement where
that's
they're
number two.
building off Avatar, the Last Airbender, and kind of just going to be building out that world. I mean, that's ripe for serialization for sure.
Yeah, so CBS Viacom, like I said, they own Showtime, they own BET, they own Comedy Central, they obviously own Paramount Pictures, the movie studio, and the Paramount Network on TV, and MTV, as well as Nickelodeon, which is why they can do this Avatar news. And that's really exciting because you
Mm.
have the Avatar co creators back in the fold to blow that up and make Avatar a huge thing. I think Avatar and The Legend of Korra, the sequel show, they both found even greater audience in the past year due to Netflix. And Netflix basically incubated this brand and grew it. And now there can be more. And I think it's really going to be cool to watch because those co-creators, they left the live action Avatar show being developed at Netflix, so they did not like the direction, and now they're basically making their own stuff to
Mhm.
compete with that. That's cool, but that's another thing like Halo that is going to get people to subscribe. Obviously the
Yeah.
Nickelodeon library will help parents subscribe for the sake of entertaining their children, but having new Avatar stuff is going to attract lots of people.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of moving into the Nickelodeon side of things, they did promise, like a live, not live action, a 3D or a animated Rugrats series, or at least a movie. I think something along those lines. New
Mhm.
Rugrats content. You're getting a Fairly Odd Parents live action
Yeah,
remake, which is actually kind of interesting to me. Um, and then also just looking here, a lot of like comedy things. We have Inside Amy Schumer. We have a Trevor Noah show. They're really building off some things that are already established, some things that aren't. Um, I don't know. I hear you
spin-offs on
laughing.
their movies like Fatal Attraction getting shows. Like
Italian Job. Okay.
I think that's a classic. Like you have an idea for a heist show, let's brand it as an Italian Job spin-off for
Yeah.
marketing IP sake. Like you can see the strings there.
Give me the Mini Coopers through the side streets of Venice again. Just give it to me. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. Obviously, some of the biggest news that was out there was that movies that are from Paramount Studios will that are in theaters will be accessible 30 to 45 days after their release or after they're out of
Yeah,
theaters.
release of this year. Similar to the HBO Max move, I think this is most interesting to people for a trio of films: Quiet Place 2, Mission Impossible 7, and Top Gun Maverick.
Mhm.
So people
And
know that they'll be able to get these in their home. And we should say that, like CBS All Access, the ad-supported version of this actually it's a dollar cheaper. It's only $4.99, and then premium is $9.99. I think if you pay for premium, there's also like more like news and sports stuff to this. You're going to get
mhm.
Champions League on Paramount Plus. Um, I know this is not going to appease many of the soccer fans that wish there was a unified platform they could give money to for all of soccer. Obviously, Peacock has Premier League, I believe, and all the other leagues are all over the place. So that's not getting solved anytime soon. But I would say that Paramount Plus, especially at this price point, I actually think they're doing a good job because that Paramount Film Library, that's thousands of movies as well. I think it's going to be a pretty solid offering. And in the near term, I think the new stuff that would excite people and like trend on Twitter, get people to subscribe, is actually probably a little more attractive than, say, like the new stuff coming from Peacock. So I think they're in a pretty good spot, and obviously this move made plenty of sense. They had to do this. My only question is, don't you think Showtime should just be rolled into Paramount Plus? Like, why separate them at this point? I think a lot of that's legacy based because Showtime, kind of like traditional HBO, is subscriptions tied with cable and stuff, so it's much more linear and old school. But don't you think Showtime should just be like a silo on Paramount Plus, the way like HBO Max has their shit broken up and Disney Plus has their shit broken up? Like, why separate them at this point? Just blow it up.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I would have to see what the numbers are on subscribers to Showtime. I think maybe Showtime would be like a nice addition to the premium subscription, possibly.
Yeah. So they said currently CBS All Access and Showtime have a combined 19.2 million subscribers. For context, Peacock has 33, including free users, and HBO in the US has 41 between traditional HBO and HBO Max. So I assume
And
that number will go up once Paramount Plus launches and new stuff is available on there. But Showtime, I don't know, like Showtime had a lot puts out a lot of shows in a successful network. I think they know what costs they can operate on, but like
mhm,
they're able to succeed without being like super huge
yeah,
service.
yeah, it's interesting. I'm looking here at some of the numbers. I guess HBO Max alone has 17.2 million of those 41 million that you talked
Which
about, which is pretty
apparently,
close
yeah,
already.
it's ahead of what they were projecting to in terms of new ones. So I think HBO Max is doing quite well.
Yeah, so I imagine that Showtime probably isn't long for being a standalone network. It probably will be rolled in some way, but maybe they're holding out to create like another subscription level or something
Hmm.
along those lines. I could see.
Yeah, I think if you're interested in this kind of thing, look at like what AMC does because AMC has a ton of different stuff that you can subscribe to individually, and I think AMC has been for sale for a while, so we'll see what happens with all those. But yeah, keep an eye on that. But I mean, for me, Paramount Plus is just cool because we're finally getting a sense of direction for Paramount, which has notably been plagued due to just poor management. Really, the past few years, like they didn't make a profit uh, from 2016 to 2018 before finally turning it around in 2019, and we've been talking about it here and there because they just been selling all their movies even before COVID, right?
Yep.
Remember Cloverfield Paradox,
Hmm.
Annihilation International, like they're just selling shit. They're just abandoning theaters and cutting marketing costs, right? And even this year, the Lovebirds, Trial of Chicago 7, Coming to America, the upcoming Without Remorse with Michael B. Jordan, all of these sold for big sums to Netflix and Amazon. Um, Emily in Paris was
Yep.
actually a Paramount Network show sold to Netflix. No one has any idea about that at this point, but that's the truth. Um, so it's that's I'm just happy that Viacom, CBS, they know they're not Disney, they know they're not even Warner Media, but I think they can be successful at this rate, and try and compete the way NBC Universal is competing. One other thing I'm excited about in the future, and maybe will be on Paramount Plus one day, would be Killers of the Flower Moon, the next Martin Scorsese movie. Um,
Starring.
Jesse Plemons.
Yeah. Our
Now
guy.
that sorry, I misspoke. That would have been on Paramount Plus, but they actually co-financed this because of Scorsese's budget demand. So this is actually going to be on Apple, not on Paramount Plus. Whatever.
Jeez.
That's just them just like making money basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Um.
but actually, and there's two other things, right? Like Paramount. What are their two biggest franchises? Right now it's Mission Impossible, but their two biggest franchises are Transformers and Star Trek, neither of which is active on the film side right now. Obviously, Star Trek TV is probably the most successful thing about CBS All Access.
Right.
So there's more room to grow with Paramount Plus, I think.
Definitely more room to grow. I guess as a conversation we've been having ongoing, especially related to the streaming services. Do you feel like Paramount Plus is good news or bad news for movie theaters?
Um, so both Warner and now Paramount have been stressing that these decisions are for this year. And for the most part, I believe them. I feel like blockbusters are not long for streaming debuts because, as we've outlined before, it's just not realistic in terms of making your money back if you're going to spend a lot on a movie to make it. Um, but as I said before as well, I'm just worried about audience habits changing and the overall volume of tickets sold continuing to sharply decline. So I think in the near term, where we're headed is just that very few non-event movies plan for theatrical release unless they are made at a very trim budget. Right? We see how successful that is for horror movies. Horror movies, make them for cheap, you will make money.
Hmm.
But other than them, it's pretty much a mixed bag when you're not IP.
Yeah, I think this is not such good news for movie theaters. Just another streaming service where you can skip the theater and get it 30 days later or 45 days later, and it
I
doesn't
mean,
really impact you that
much like
much.
Dune on HBO Max, you'd have to shoot me to make me watch Mission Impossible 7 for the first time on my TV. Like Christ.
But Dave,
That's
you
just so
are
disheartening.
but Dave, you are also like in that 5% of people who will say
Yeah,
that.
correct.
That's the thing. A lot of people will just enjoy watching Mission Impossible from their home and seeing it at all. So
Hmm.
it's tough, definitely tough. But we'll be talking about it. Just
For the
last
record,
question.
Paramount Plus launches this Wednesday, the 4th.
Just last question. Frasier reboot. Almost certain that he's probably going to be a podcaster in this.
Oh,
Your
that's funny.
thoughts?
Um,
Finally, we get a podcasting TV show, right?
I mean, yeah, why not? Why not? You got your main lead. You got Grammer back. Kelsey Grammer's back for Frasier. Sure. Kind of reminds me of the Roseanne slash Connors revival.
I mean,
Well,
if they're not
do
going to
it.
have Eddie, like I don't even want to watch. But all right, why don't we move on to something that is also probably bad for movies in some way? The Golden Globes, who we've talked about last week and ongoing that they shouldn't matter as much as they do. And I know you didn't watch it live, Dave. I did, and I'll tell you what. Um, I went in being like Hollywood Foreign Press. They suck. Nothing that happens tonight actually matters. And the first award came up, and Daniel Kaluuya won for Best Supporting Actor in a Drama, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" I'm like celebrating in my house, and I was like, they roped me back in almost immediately. Um, watching it was tough. Award shows via Zoom are just not ideal.
No.
There are some nice moments. Lee Isaac Chung and his daughter was a particularly wonderful moment. The widow of uh, Chadwick
Chadwick
Boseman
Boseman.
was a very touching moment, and her strength was just phenomenal and really amazing to watch. But overall, you lose so much of just the charm and what makes these shows fun when everybody's
Mhm.
like awkwardly trying to mingle over Zoom
Yeah.
before commercial breaks. It was tough.
At least David Fincher ripping shots every time he lost was keeping the drunk atmosphere and reputation of the Globes alive. That has to count for something.
Fincher's great, man. Just love him. He knew he wasn't winning shit, and he was just like having fun with it. Chloe Zhao winning was also really great, and she just seems like an incredibly thoughtful and heartfelt person. A lot of people didn't show up last night for the awards, which I'm
Mhm.
not surprised about.
Pacino showed up though, barely.
Bro, I had no idea that was Pacino until they announced him. I was like, who is this man? He was looking like a lion with that mane last night. Um,
Hooah.
yeah, I mean, I guess there were some really exciting wins, some very not so exciting wins. Borat did pretty well. Won the two big comedy categories,
Mhm.
best actor and best comedy. We got a win for Anya Taylor Joy in Queen's Gambit, which was
Yep.
nice. We got Kaluuya, we got Bodega. I mean, Boyega,
Boyega, Jesus.
the Boyega Bodega boy.
Gotta say that is a weird one.
Yeah,
John Boyega winning for Small Axe, Red, White, and Blue, in Best Supporting Actor in a television movie or miniseries. But John Boyega is very much the lead performance in Red, White, and Blue. But because it's only one movie slash episode of Small Axe, he's supporting. Kind of a nice bookend on the what the fuck do we call Small Axe conversation that we've had for 6 months.
yeah. And who is the leading actor? Like,
Beats me. That doesn't make
sure,
this might be the most confusing one yet.
sure. So, just what should we actually take away for the big picture from the Golden
Yeah.
Globes last night?
Well, we can just touch on TV quick. Obviously, the Globes taking place after the Emmys, but incorporating a slightly different eligibility calendar. There's stuff that's eligible now that wasn't for the Emmys, as well as older stuff that already got awarded or passed over by the Emmys, right? So you had some usual suspects winning again, like Schitt's Creek a few more times, and Mark Ruffalo for Know This Much Is True. But there's also some new ones, right? Queen's Gambit winning for miniseries. Anya Taylor Joy winning for lead actress. Emma Corrin winning for The Crown. Two instances of the Globes doing what they do, anointing the ingenue, anointing the new young woman. They do this
Mhm.
all the time. Um, Josh O'Connor also won for The Crown.
Yeah.
So a lot of the TV stuff kind of made sense to me. Um,
Yep, I agree.
yeah.
Ted Lasso, shout out Jason Sudeikis being high and wearing a hoodie and not knowing what to say. That was great.
The biggest hit for Apple TV Plus, no question.
Great show. Definitely watch it. Yeah, The Crown really made out last night. Gillian Anderson also
Mhm.
won for her portrayal of Thatcher. Um, but yeah, for on the movie side, I mean, this is where things are feel like they actually might be hopefully leading up to what we're going to see at the Oscars. Nomadland takes home the best motion picture drama,
Mhm.
almost certainly going to be the favorite to take that home. And Zhao also was won best director for a drama. She
Yeah.
seems like she's the favorite there as well. What else should we be tuning into that actually might matter?
Yeah, so last week we talked about issues with the Globes and the HFPA, as well as what they do and don't mean for the Oscars. So
Mhm.
check that out if you missed it, youtube.com/nostalgia pod. The Oscar voting does begin this week. So the biggest thing about these wins is the visibility and platform push for voters seeing these movies win. Obviously, knowing the HFPA votes on the Oscars, and the Oscars have way more voting members. We know this much. But like last year, all the leading graces were all really down the middle on the acting side all season. So when they won the Globes, they kept winning everything else until they won the Oscars. Remember, Brad Pitt won fucking everything. So if something's going to continue that way, maybe this is the start. I think Zhao for director, Travis Chicago 7 for screenplay.
Yeah.
That'd be original screenplay. Nomadland for best picture. Chadwick Boseman for best actor, certainly. Um, those are our close ones, I would say. And Daniel Kaluuya for best supporting actor is probably the next close one because he did beat
Yeah.
Sacha Baron Cohen, his main competition head to head there.
Hmm.
Baron Cohen, of course, won for comedy, but that's for Borat. We don't expect that in a performance to be nominated. So those are the ones to watch, right? See what happens. Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross won for score for Soul. See if that keeps going.
Yep.
Um, the caveat, like last year, is that the remember Parasite was not nominated for Best Picture or Best
Hmm.
Musical Comedy because it was relegated to the foreign language only category. This has happened again with Minari, even
Yep.
more obnoxiously because Minari is made by American and set in American and about American dream and values and all that. Either
But
way,
they don't speak American, Dave.
that's right. That's what the foreigners in the
Yeah.
HFPA determined. Oh my god.
Jeez.
So Minari hasn't gone head to head with Nomadland Chicago 7 yet.
Hmm.
Um, Remains to be seen what happens. They did get nominated for SAG Ensemble, so
Pay more attention
that
there.
that leads to Minari being a top tier contender. So I wouldn't draw too many conclusions with that yet. But yeah, I feels like Chadwick Boseman Best Actor race is settled. I think.
Yeah, he's. I think that one feels settled. I also feel pretty set on Zhao at this point. It feels just like there's a lot of momentum behind her. So those two, and like you mentioned, the Soul, Resner, Atticus Ross, John Baptiste,
Mhm.
win probably is locked up. But a couple of surprises. Rosamund Pike won for her performance, and I care a lot
Yeah.
for musical or comedy, obviously. So that's the category. Maybe you're not going to take it seriously, but do you think she has a shot to maybe take home the Oscar?
I mean, no. I mean, the question should be: is she gonna get nominated?
Uh,
Um, and I think no. I think that's a no because in the drama side, I thought you might have our whole field right there, right? You have Frances McDormand, Viola Davis,
mhm.
Carey Mulligan, Vanessa Kirby. They've kind of been pegged and largely nominated the whole time thus far. The fifth spot and the winner at the Golden Globes is Andra Day for the United States versus Billie Holiday. We can talk about that movie in a second. Um, Everyone's been talking like that fifth spot's what's up for grabs. Is it Andra Day? Is it Zendaya and Malcolm Marie? Is it God, Amy Adams in Hillbilly Elegy? Rosamund Pike showing up at the very end. I don't know. That just feels like a Globesy move to me. I don't think there's too much more steam for this one.
We'll see. Yeah, it was definitely a surprise to me. And again, the way that they split up the musical with comedy, it's just
Right.
such a weird
But they don't
mix.
split up supporting actor and
Yeah,
actress. It's weird.
it's very strange. They just want to get people on the screen, I think. But yeah, so the award show overall, I didn't think was very good. They did the best they could with COVID. Faye and Polar were fine. Keenan Thompson did some weird bits. It was whatever. The best bit of the night I thought was they had a bunch of stars go on and do like zooms with frontline workers, and they were
Mhm.
like saying like, oh, I've been experiencing this, and they're like, oh, well, you're experiencing a case of Shit's Creeks or something like
Yeah.
that, and like like relaying it back to like a title.
Yeah.
So I thought that was probably the best bit, but overall it's pretty unmemorable.
Yeah. And just one book in, the ratings were down big, like all other live events and award shows. So not much to read into that. It's just what's been happening. Remember the National Football Championship game was down huge, like years and years, lowest point. Like, things are just down right now. People are not watching live events and movies and TV. I feel like a lot of people don't have any semblance of an awards race and awards calendar at this point, especially with the later season. So I'd expect this trend to continue for all the other film awards to come.
We're going on a year of stay-at-home orders. It's uh, it's it's just been a year. So let's move on, though. Let's not talk about the Golden Globes for another 357 days, and let's talk about Julian Baker right now, a member of the band Boy Genius, which we
Super group.
yeah we gave review on back when they dropped their EP of the same name. Check that out. And I believe we also talked about Julian Baker just a few short years ago, back in 2017, which is now actually 4 years ago. Kind of crazy to think
Coming
about.
up, yeah.
With her second album, Turn Out the Lights. But she's back with Little Oblivions, which if you're following the Boy Genius tree like thing, having a better Oblivion community club or
Center.
whatever center,
Hmm.
and then Little Oblivions afterwards, just feels like they're trying to confuse us a little bit.
That's
I
good.
appreciate it though. Yeah, so Julian Baker, I think, is probably the second most famous member of Boy Genius. Lucy Dacus, all respect, but just hasn't gotten the same, I don't know, acclaim, I'd say, in the indie sphere. Obviously, Bridgers is the one in that group, the number one seed at the moment. But after this release, I think we might be talking about more of a competition. How did you like Little Oblivions, Dave?
I did like it. I think it's continuing the trend we've talked about for a while. There's just a lot of badass women in indie rock, and they're making some of the best stuff right now. No question.
Yeah,
Talked about
for
Soccer
sure.
Mommy and Phoebe last year. Better Blooming Community Center 2019. Boy Genius, Dacus, Snail Mail. It's becoming a longer and longer list, and they just like it feels like an event release. Like this is probably one of the biggest releases on Matador this year.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think the thing listening to this album from Baker is, we talked about Turn Out the Lights. That's a very like singer songwriter acousticy album with some flourishes. You start to see her play around with sounds a little bit more, have some really nice touches. This is really her bringing in a lot more sound, a lot more band, just really building out what she's doing, and it feels like she's really moving into her own, like a next stage of her career as an artist, which is really exciting, especially if you've ever gone back and like heard any of the I've only heard a couple of the main hit songs off Sprained Ankle, her debut in 2015 when she was only, I think, 19 at the time, so or maybe 20. And that's very much like piano or guitar. That's like about it on the track. So she's really building it out now, and I think there's a lot of really great songs that make the really heavy lyrics throughout a lot more
Mm.
palatable. And you start off with Hard Line right away, which is like, there's a lot of different sounds going on there, and I think almost like intentionally supposed to be jarring in a sense as you listen to a Julian Baker album, and it subverts all your expectations. But what other tracks moving forward really stood out to you or grabbed you?
Yeah, honestly, I think Hardline was the biggest standout to me just because the instrumentation really does stand out. And
Mhm.
apart from some Boy Genius background vocals on Favor,
Yes,
Julian
sir.
Baker made this whole album herself. There weren't session musicians. She played guitar, she played piano, she even played drums, which she says she's not that great at. She
Mhm.
she did everything else. And
Yeah,
I'm not sure if she mixed it, but like in terms of what you hear, it's all Julian except for one song, and that's really cool to me. And I think that she does a good job because I like this a lot more than Turn Out the Lights because of I think the more sound going on to it.
mhm.
Just because, as people know, this is not usually my speed, this type of rock, but I think it actually, like you said, it stays lively despite the fact that this is very much indie rock with like touches of emo. Like
Yeah.
it is some deeper stuff. Her speaking to her addiction issues and
Mhm.
recently relapsing after being sober for like 6 years. So there are some heavy themes here,
For sure.
as to be expected from Julian Baker. But I think, as you said, she does a really good job of I think making it sound uh, engaging and interesting the whole runtime.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we all know that she's just a great songwriter. I think lyrically, she's incredibly strong in some of the metaphors that she used. Like one point, she was talking about um, a potential like suicide attempt, and she talks about like tying like the galaxy or like the Milky Way around her neck like a noose or something like that, and like just like feeling that weight of the world as she's going through this relapse, just really strong. By the way, just wanted to say that the mixing was done by someone different, and but it's only like four people outside of the Boy Genius girls that helped her out with this. Really impressive. And you mentioned the drums. Actually, one of my favorite tracks off this was Bloodshot, which is right in the middle of the album, and I really love the drums on that. The way that they mix them, it sounds like it's kind of like coming in and out from one ear to the other, like very slowly going back and forth. Kind of made this like metronome feel to the track that I thought was really unique. Also really like the song "Repeat." I feel like that's maybe her strongest like vocal performance because I you can really hear I think like the pain and anguish that she's trying to get through, feeling like her like life is kind of on repeat sometimes with some of the pain and the experiences that she's going through, especially related to her recent relapse. So, I mean, front to back, this is a really strong album. But you mentioned Favor. Did that track stand out to you? Did you notice that that was a Boy Genius song,
No, I
basically?
didn't notice
No.
it until
Yeah.
reading it after.
I noticed it only because I noticed that there was a different vocal. So I was like,
Okay,
there's got
yeah.
to be someone. I didn't pick out that it was Lucy and Phoebe, but looking it up, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's one of the stronger tracks as well. So we'll definitely be adding that to our Spotify Best of 2021 playlist. Check that out in the show notes. Any last thoughts, Dave, before we move on from Julian?
She's a badass.
Yeah, she really is. Definitely check her music out. She's great. Let's move on to some TV. A recent drop on HBO. What just like middle of February? This show, It's a Sin. Uh, bought the rights were bought by HBO, and 5 episode series about a group of gay men in the UK, London, in from 1981 to 1991 during the height of the AIDS pandemic. Um,
Mhm.
pretty pretty heavy content, but I think the show did a really nice job of kind of handling the emotional balance and just a really surprising but pleasurable watch. Did you like It's a Sin, Dave?
I did like it, so, yeah, for those reasons too. This was a big hit over in the UK at the end of January on Channel 4, and as you said, kind of another co-production, really more of an acquisition by HBO. Shows from Russell T Davies, who just had a show on HBO last year, Years and Years, which I remember seeing those ads a lot. Didn't end up watching it, but Russell T Davies probably most famous for the beginning the reboot of Doctor Who about 15 years ago. And in general, it makes a lot of stuff. Look at that TV. He has been involved with a lot of TV. Um, and yeah, I think Instant interests me off the jump because of its lead performance uh, being given to us by Ali Alexander, the lead singer of Years and Years, a synth band I like quite a bit. And that was just cool to me because, he's, one of the more famous gay people in the music scene at this point, in terms of new artists. And uh, we knew he was an actor. And, when we started listening to his music a few years back, and this is probably the most high profile thing I've seen him in as an actor. So I was just cool to see that and are interested to see what that would be like. I actually do think he's quite talented.
Yeah, I was really surprised by his performance, and I even thought it got stronger as the episodes went on. I think the first episode is such a memorable episode of TV to me because I feel like it
Yeah.
sets up everything about the show, but not in an obvious way, right? You kind of have the like getting the group together beginning where like you're following these 4 to 5 guys as they are each finding their way to London where they meet each other and start living together and becoming friends, and each coming from different circumstances and having different experiences with their families. Obviously, you have Roscoe, played by Omari Douglas, whose family from Africa, Nigeria, is
Mhm.
very not accepting of his sexual orientation as a gay man, and will actually want to send him back, where he will certainly be beaten and potentially even killed for living this way. So he runs away from home. You have Richie, played by Ali Alexander, who is going to school for finance, or I think it was law actually, and uh, really struggling with coming out to his family, and um, probably one of my favorite characters, Colin, played by Colin Scott Howells, who very quiet and reserved and becoming a tailor. Like there's all these interesting stories, kind of bringing them all together. Um, and you kind of think it's just going to be like this, like buddy pal, like a bunch of gay men finding their sexuality and becoming, and then dealing with like the family drama type of thing. And then Neil Patrick Harris kind of has this presence in the first episode, and you're like, what's his role going to be in this? I thought it was going to kind of be like mentor, like showing the ropes, and he actually ends up being the one who kind of sets up the rest of the plot, where he falls sick with AIDS and dies by the end of the first episode, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what the show is going to be about. I thought it was really brilliantly set up and one of the best episodes of TV I've watched in a while. What were your thoughts around that episode?
Yeah, I agree because I also didn't know what to expect. I was like, are they playing off like it's Colin gonna be tragic? Is this gonna be like some like a predatory
Mm,
figure or something because of what
right.
happens with the other guy at the
The
store? And
boss.
it's like, what's going on here? But no, it's like I think the show does a really good job of like showing the different kinds of like allies there are
Mhm.
to gay people at the time. It's both straight and fellow gays. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it was a really great performance. One of the better showings from NPH in some time. I really can't remember the last time I really enjoyed him since like I don't know, like Gone Girl. Like it's kind of been a
Mhm.
minute, you know.
Yeah, for sure. No, I thought he was great, and was actually sad to see him go. But also, like that's I feel like
Yeah,
that's a trick a lot of shows do, kind of like The Outsider with Jason Bateman. You have him for that one episode, and then
yeah,
he's
sure.
not in it anymore after that. Yeah, so talk to me about the other parts of the season that really stood out to you, or what you really liked about it.
Yeah, man. So you said like there's a lot of levity to it, right? Like I feel like especially in the beginning, everyone feels like a really well-rounded character that you're invested in because they just seem so happy and there's such like sense of camaraderie, right? I actually didn't like as much the way the show progressed, where he started to focus a lot on Richie and like a lot of his friends were kind of sidelined, and the last of their screen time was more about them relating to Richie. And like, yes, I
Mhm.
get it. Like you cast your most famous character to be the lead, and the lead's gonna get the meaty stuff. So I understand like why the plot went that way, but I actually would have just liked more time because, like, as you said, like each episode, like we actually like skip ahead like years at a time, and um, I just would have liked more time to color it in even more, just because I really like that dynamic. You know, like
Mhm.
at the Pink Palace, what they called their house, their
Mhm.
flat, like that was really great. And like thinking of stuff that's recently that's portrayed AIDS like normal heart or even the deuce, right, where
Right.
the uh on AIDS coming up and becoming more well known. It's just one of many plots in the deuce season 3, but still done really well and I think really effectively. In this case, because we're in England, like they're kind of talking about, "Oh, it's like really bad in America," but
Mhm.
that's an American problem. Kind of presciently brought me back to like COVID denialism. Oh, COVID, no,
Yeah.
that's a Chinese problem. That doesn't matter to us, you know.
Mhm.
Um, unfortunately, that's how I felt. And I think actually having Richie, having your lead, kind of being the one that's spreading some like bad misinformation, right? And
Yeah.
later on, they're like, "Hey, you voted for Margaret Thatcher, who very much has passed homophobic legislation. Like, what's up with that, dude?" And he's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I feel there's just so much more meat to It's a Sin, but it's still really well done.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually think if there is one thing I found myself feeling uh sad about, or maybe like disappointed with the show, it was that I agree that Richie became too much of the focus. Like Roscoe and his family, you can kind of see the threads kind of being tied back together in some way. And I feel like you don't really get the satisfying return that I was hoping for, the resolve with that relationship, whichever direction it would have gone in. I mean, it seems like he ends up forgiving his dad by the end, and that's kind of where they want you to kind of feel at peace with it. But I feel like there was just so much more to like go through and look at with that. Um, Lydia, like her I think her parents just kind of show up at the end, or was that like friends who like come to console her? And I was kind of like, I need to know more about
Yeah,
what's the
Jill,
dynamic
you
here.
mean, played by
Sorry,
Lydia
Lydia
West.
West.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jill.
yeah, I wasn't sure about that either. And she also an interesting character, right? Because she is a straight woman who's friends with them, but her whole presence on the show is really just how she's taking care of and guiding these gay people through the worst
Yeah.
moment of their lives, right?
Yep.
Again, more room to flesh out that character. I did read uh, there's a piece that was positive on the show on Vulture, but it was critical because Jill and also Ash, sorry, and Roscoe are the minorities,
Hmm.
but they're almost sidelined
Right.
from like the worst of the show as
Hmm.
we focus on Richie. And like I don't know, like on the other hand, we've seen like minorities get killed off early and put to the side, so it's like it's kind of complicated. And like you understand, Russell T Davies, he wanted a famous out British person who to be Richie, and that's how they landed on Ollie pretty quickly. I
Hmm.
understand why Ollie is who he is playing, but yeah, like, these were strong enough characters that this could have been like an 8 episode miniseries.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. How did you feel about the last episode where it pretty quickly becomes Richie back with his parents, apart from the group? What were your feelings around that?
Yeah, I kind of struggled at the end there.
Hmm. Me
Like the
too.
stuff with them, like it was just Jill versus his mom.
Hmm.
I kind of liked how they did with his parents. Like his dad actually responded in the I think the
Empathetic
subverting
way.
way. Like you didn't expect him to act that way, the way he had been played up the
Yep.
series that far. But like it's kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of distracting. Like it almost the show kind of ended like a little more narrowly than I expected.
Hmm. Yeah, I was definitely struggling with it. On the one hand, I think it's a fairly realistic portrayal of how parents back then could have responded to the situation they were put in, finding out that their son has AIDS and is gay all at the same time. um, on the other hand, it did just feel like they were kind of creating further conflict, where the show is already coming to its like emotional apex and ending with Richie's death anyway. And I have to say, when the mom said he passed away last night to Jill, my heart just sank. I was so sad and disappointed that we didn't get to see that. And obviously, that's what the show is going for. And but just totally disappointing we didn't get to see one last get together between the crew.
Yeah, I think I was actually most affected even earlier when Colin
Yeah,
takes the turn for the worse because it's like, ah, man, this is because
this
like
is
they're setting it
the
up right as he's kind
sweetness.
of this like naive, really kind person,
Mhm.
setting it to be preyed upon at work, loses his job when he doesn't give in, right? And then he gets AIDS pretty fast, even though he's not a you know reckless casual sex having person like say Richie
Mhm.
was, right? And it's like yeah, they did a good job of kind of coloring in just how wide reaching the AIDS epidemic, especially was in the '80s, where like and I think that's the best part about the show. It's early on, right? Like no one knows anything,
Mhm.
and when they do know things, they're not telling anyone anything. So
Yep.
no one knows what to do and what not to do. That's a big part of what happens in the movie The Normal Heart. It's like you're either killing us and you're not. You don't care, right? It's like uh, I get that the show didn't want to like dive full into like the big picture macro socio-political stuff, and you had good enough characters you didn't need to do that. But I just really like seeing that and seeing these characters react to their circumstances. But next thing you know, we're like 6 years past like the inception point when people start learning,
Mhm.
what AIDS is. So it just
Yeah,
happened
no,
fast.
I totally agree. I think Colin's death is so well done because like you said, you subvert the expectation of him kind of being this like, all right, he's like the sweet character who's, I'm saying simple just in terms of his like desires in life are more simple than a lot of the other characters in the show. He just is happy to work a job and have an easy, or not easy life, but like a fulfilling life in that way. He's not looking for like the fame or stardom that, or the riches that the others are. And then he's the one who gets sick so quickly and has this happen where then it subverts the whole way that everybody else in the show is responding to what's going on. And you pretty quickly after that see Richie He calls in that hotline, is asking all the questions and all the things he's heard, all the rumors he's heard. Is drinking battery acid a way that I can get this out of my system? Things like that. You see Roscoe burning all of his stuff and throwing it all out and like scrubbing his room that he had been sharing. It's like seeing the way that all the information is like comes to them, and the way that they start to learn about it and then react to it and respond is very, very fascinating. But Colin was I think a really great character, and then the reveal of how he actually got it I thought was really well done too, because you are just kind of left like, how the hell did he get this? And it kind of alludes back to something they showed you in the beginning. Just I thought really well done reveal. um yeah, this show's a triumph, and it's 5 episodes. It's an easy watch, and they have, like we said, they mix in a lot of levity, a lot of really fun moments, some really great needle drops, especially at the end of episodes. I think there's
Yeah,
a lot to like with this show for sure.
yeah. And the needle drops were good. They definitely paid up for this licensing, right? What's it? You get Sweet Dreams and Kids in America
Who
and
Wants to Live Forever from Freddie
Tainted Love. Yeah,
Mercury.
there were some bangers, no question.
Everybody Hurts in the last episode. I was like, man, they really went all out for this. What something Wonder Woman 1984 could never do. So,
Oh God, I
shout out,
forgot about that.
shout out to It's a Sin, Dave. I want to give you the floor real quick to talk about Andra Day in the United States versus Billie Holiday.
Yeah, so Andra Day wins the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Drama. She has been talked about as perhaps the fifth nominee for Best Actress at the Oscars, alongside Mulligan, Kirby, Viola Davis, and Frances McDormand. That fifth spot has been up in the air. No one is really sure what's going to happen because again, it's early, right? Could it be Zendaya, Malcolm and Marie, not the most well received movie? Maybe not. Could it be Amy Adams? Even though Hillbilly Elegy, not well received at all. But Amy Adams did get some love. I believe it was at SAG. So people aren't really sure what's going on. But now you have Andra Day winning this award. Oh, just as Oscar running is about to start, people are going to start putting her as in there in that fifth spot. And if it continues, maybe she's no longer that fifth spot at all, and she ends up winning this. Too early to say, but that's where we're at. And it is a really good performance. It is by far the best thing about the United States versus Billie Holiday, which is available on Hulu right now. This was a Hulu acquisition. Who sold it to them? Was it Paramount? I forget. Someone just sold it to Hulu just about 6 weeks ago. And because of the late um, breaking nature of this premiere, Andra Day actually wasn't even eligible for the SAG or BAFTA lists. So again, her awards candidacy is quite interesting as a latecomer. We'll see what happens. But yeah, this is directed by Lee Daniels. Lee Daniels hasn't made a movie since The Butler in 2013, because he was making Empire on Fox for 6 seasons. So it's been a while since he's made a film. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a Lee Daniels movie, so it's very like up and down. Has a lot of things on its mind. I like The Butler for what I remember at the time, and of course, he was widely celebrated for
Mhm.
Precious back in '09, where he was even nominated for Best Director and Best Picture. But this is really unfortunate because I feel like the Billie Holiday story is not well known enough and is very ripe for an intriguing biopic treatment. But unfortunately, the US versus Billie Holiday is very standard, very conventional biopic, and kind of uninteresting a lot of the time. Like it's straightforward, but we're just chopping off plot the whole time until we get to the end. Kind of reminds me of like Seberg at the beginning of last year, where kind of a similar thing. You have this famous actress who gets targeted by the FBI for association with the Black Panthers. Andra Day, of course, as a black woman, Billie Holiday as a black woman, being targeted by the FBI for her song "Strange Fruit," which is, of course, a lyrical poem sorts about describing a lynching.
Mhm.
And people probably know that for the Nina Simone cover, famously sampled by Kanye West on Blood on the Leaves. But that song and Billie Holiday's persistence on performing the song, and the establishment and the law enforcement's desire to prevent her from doing that, for God forbid she didn't spark any civil rights action. This is taking place in the early 50s, really. That's kind of the focus of the film. Garrett Hedlund plays John Anslinger, who's a FBI uh, bigwig who's kind of obsessed with taking down Billie Holiday and trying to bust her for her substance abuse issues.
Hedlund
And
played a evil white guy from the '60s or earlier. Sorry,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I was
can't
like,
can't see it.
I was like, Garrett, man, like, and it's also quite thankless. Like, it's really like one note. Like John Aslinger at the end, we see real life clip of him getting awarded like a medal or something by JFK. Like he
Mm,
had a long career in the FBI, but this is like super one note, like by the book. Like it's not even like a great villain role. It's really straightforward. Um, but yeah, Hedlund coming off of playing a reformed Klansman dude, let's do something else
yeah,
before it's too late. That's all I
L-
gotta say.
I just want to
Uh,
get him to like modern times. Let's just like let's get him into space or something. Get, we got
Tron
to switch it
Legacy.
up.
He can do
Yeah,
Tron again.
there we go.
But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because the Andre Day performance is really good. Andre Day is an R&B singer. This is her film debut. So in the process, playing a famous musician, she's singing the songs. So she's
Mm,
bringing that whole package. But I think the role also lends itself to like an awards worthy biopic turn because the Billie Holiday character, Billie Holiday, uh, had her ups and downs. She had dalliances with all kinds of men and relationship issues, addicted to heroin, going up and down with that, getting arrested, both, getting when she's getting like shit planted on her versus when she's just getting caught. Uh, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of room there for Day to have like emotional scenes, and she does a good job with that. I think especially towards the end when like Play Holiday, she dies of liver failure. Like she really like went down fast. Unfortunately, died in her 40s, and those scenes where like she doesn't have like makeup on, she doesn't look great, she's pretty fucked up and going out. Day like really gives it like it's really really powerful, and it's just unfortunate that the rest of the movie is not great at all. What's his name? The guy who played Everybody Hates Chris way back in the day. He hasn't been acting much. He's in this movie as the famous saxophonist who was a big player and peer of Billy's, but his role in the film barely has anything to do with music. It's more about how they just got high together and stuff as like part of the band. And in general, like the movie is so focused on the plot that like nothing about Billie Holiday as an artist really shines through at all. And it's so one note about like the FBI's obsession with her that we never really get below the surface. And because this was a good enough performance, if this was a better screenplay, this could have been a much better movie. But
yeah.
you'll probably be seeing more of it because it seems like Andre Day's going to stick around in the race.
I'm gonna check it out. Sounds like something that I would enjoy watching. And if Andre Day is gonna be in the race, man, we gotta know what we're talking about here. So I'm sad I didn't get to it. I appreciate you giving the rundown though. Um, yeah, check it out on Hulu, people. Let's move on though, because I can't wait to talk about this film that you've been raving about for a while. And I was like, there's no way this film is going to live up to the hype that Davis has said. Minari, the Lee Isaac Chung masterpiece, Dave's number one film of 2020. And folks, it's good. It lives up to the hype. It's on video on demand right now. You can get, I think it's early. It's called early access on Amazon Prime.
PVOD, $20.
But man, I thought this was just a triumph of a film. Stephen Yun on a heater to end all heaters at the moment, but you know, I I just felt like emotionally wrecked by this film. Like it really like has such a wonderful way of like building you up and tearing you down and then building you back up again pretty quickly, and just how masterfully Chung um, kind of just pulls the strings throughout. I'm just so impressed by. Dave, did you rewatch? Did you pay the $20?
I did not rewatch. I did look for some clips and stuff, but it's still very fresh because the movie's that good.
Yeah, it's really a moving film with so many like features, and I think what I found myself, I guess, starting to, and being most pulled in by is the little boy in all of this. Surprisingly,
Mhm.
Alan Kim, who played David. uh, obviously from the very beginning of the film is made to be a centerpiece of this family. You know, they're always making sure he's not running, not exerting too much energy. He's got a heart issue, a hole in his heart, and uh, this little boy, Alan Kim, is so freaking cute, man. Like he might be the cutest little boy I've ever seen in my life, and he did a really good job of acting in this, which is hard. You know, something I feel like you don't really expect out of child stars. So did Noel Kate Cho, who played his older sister Anne, and then you have the dynamic between Jacob and Monica throughout. You bring in Grandma Soon Ja, played by Yoon Ya Jung, and it's just like uh, recipe for success. I wanted to ask you because it's so fresh in my mind. What are the moments from it that you feel
Hmm.
like have stuck with you since you watched it all the way back in what February?
Uh, no, was it end of October I saw it? Yeah,
You
it's
saw it
been
in
a
October.
yeah, been a minute.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I think that everything with the family, right? Like the Yi family and that journey and just how resonant it is, right? Like it's and that's what was so annoying about the Golden Globes kerfuffle is because it's a movie that's so fixated on the American dream and really relatable values and ideals about a family coming to a new place and trying to make the best of their situation and keep each other going and keep themselves together in the process, right? Like everything with the grandma and the kid and how they would I think that dynamic pays off so well when like they're like, oh, grandma's weird or grandma smells or whatever it is or the
Yeah.
food stinks, whatever it is, right? And they progress and like you really then like the relationship grows organically over time. You learn what Minari means,
Hmm.
what happens at the end, and obviously the very end is like big tragedy, but like the I think that relationship between David and the grandma. But I also am a steaming young stan at this point. I'm really happy to see him show out
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah. I really liked the way the movie kind of like really pulls you into this family. I mean, you're like living in this tiny little trailer with them, and like it feels so.
Arkansas, right?
Yeah, it's in Arkansas, and it feels so personal. Like you really are like laying in the bed with them. You're like really at the table with them. You start to become so invested in all the dynamics, and you see how hard they're working. You know, Monica and Jacob on their own dreams. You know, Monica to become better at identifying the sex of the chickens that she's looking at, so she could make it in California if she wanted to, and Jacob working to create the farm that he's wanted to have, and you start to see them have this success, and then things just start going wrong, and they keep running into obstacles, and it feels so frustrating. Obviously, the grandma gets sick, has a stroke, and isn't herself anymore. Just as her and David's relationship was really starting to bud and grow in such a beautiful way. Um, and it really just starts to pull you apart, and building it back up around that uh, promise that they made each other, Jacob and Monica, that they would help each other out through everything, they would get each other through the hard times, save each other, and seeing the way that they do that, having to rely on their community, having to rely on people to help them. I thought the very very end when they showed the guy who's using the stick to find the water for the well was just such like a great way to end it, because that had stuck in my mind how much he was like, no, we're smart, we'll just use our logic to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then
Will Patton as Paul.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
pretty
So good.
quickly like it doesn't work out, but then at the end they do rely on someone else to help them find where the water source is. And I just was like, and but instead of it just being Jacob and David, it's Jacob and Monica and David and Will and like this whole group together. And I just
Yeah.
thought it was such a beautiful metaphor and so like understated but like well done. It really like spoke to me.
Yeah,
um
definitely. I think that's the thing, and that's what Lee Isaac Chung kind of touched on in his acceptance speech for the Globes. It's just that it's a movie about community and family and love, and I
mhm,
think it's like you watch it and you're waiting for the shoot. You're waiting for something bad to happen. Right? Everyone's talking about how this is bad land. The last guy who lived there went bankrupt. Good fucking luck,
mhm.
bro. And you're waiting for something to happen. And I definitely didn't see coming exactly what happens with the heat, shall I say? But you know, man, like the water stuff's really good, man. Like
Yeah,
I think Will Patton was perfect as like a Pentecostal working poor guy in the area who befriends David or
totally.
Jacob, and like even like the brief moments like when he's like doing his thing, carrying the cross, atoning,
Mhm.
and the kids in the school bus are like, "Yo, what's up with that guy? He's weird." It's like everything felt so real.
Yeah, and the way that they kind of like slide in like the classism and the racism into it, and not necessarily in a way where you're just like, oh wow, that's awful, but like you see it through like the eyes of like the children, right? Like, oh, stop me when I say a word that's actually in your language, and she just starts saying the most like
Yeah,
stereotypical, Asian
yeah,
language.
ching chong shit.
Yeah, and or when the little boy asked David why his face is so flat, and he's like, "It's not. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Just like things like that, and through the eyes of babes, you can kind of make it a little bit more palatable. But then you see the way that they're talking about Will Patton's character Paul as he's carrying the cross, and they're like, "I hear that guy doesn't even have any running water. Like, can you imagine like
Hmm.
living life like that?" And meanwhile, there's David and Anna just like, keeping their mouths shut because they didn't have any running water at the house when when they were being driven home like that. It's like
Yeah.
just like the subtleness of some of it was just really well done and just such a beautiful story, man. It's amazing that he based this off of his own life in so many ways. I mean, obviously, I'm sure it's not a true
Hmm.
story in every sense, but still, just
Yeah.
wow.
Also, Jacob and Monica's, I think, relationship as a young couple trying to enterprise as best they can.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, really well done. Like, you got a lot of like familiar themes, right? Of like a in-law coming into the home and the
Hmm.
you know the non uh, child of that figure trying to live with that new circumstance in their home. Like, there's so much familiar to it, right? But yeah, like
Yeah.
it comes across as so genuine. From what I understand, Hanyi Ree plays Monica's bit of a newcomer, whereas Yoon Yoo Jun, who plays the grandma, she's like a legend, like veteran actor over in Korea.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up actually because with how much they fight, I think you very much could be like, well, these two should just break up, but they give you just enough moments for you to like be rooting for them. Like when Jacob works himself too hard in the field and he can't take his shirt off or wash his hair, and he's sitting in the tub and Monica's doing it for him. Like those sorts of moments just like show you the love that they have, but how the way that they're going about building their life is pulling them apart. And
Mhm.
um, then they have that devastating fight, obviously, and it's just like so gut wrenching.
Yeah.
Just really a master class in making a subtle but affecting movie. Just really impressive.
Hmm. Yeah. So Yun and Yoon Yoo Jun were both nominated by SAG. Um, so we're definitely paying attention to this. Actually, Stephen Yun, in the process of being nominated for Best Actor at SAG, he's the first Asian American to be nominated for that,
Wow,
which is pretty wild.
that's
But
amazing.
I'd say it's a long time coming for Stephen Yun, right? Because he post The Walking Dead, he's slowly made his name as a serious dramatic actor. I think small roles in like Okja and Sorry to Bother You, but really in 2018 when he you know absolutely destroyed it in Burning in a supporting role. It's like, oh wait a minute, like this guy's like really high class. And then in Minari being the lead and playing a completely different person than he does in Burning, much more straightforward person, but he just has so much more emotive scenes in this and a lot more subtlety, I think, in his performance. And not that he wasn't subtle in Burning, but like this role, despite being lead, is still requires a lot of subtlety, Jacob. So
Totally.
uh, I'm hopeful that Stephen Yeun gets nominated for Best Actor. He's should be a tremendous pick if he did win.
It would be a really inspired pick, and
Of course, he's going up against Chadwick, so uh, he's I think very unlikely to win. So
mhm.
we'll settle for the nomination. But I just the recognition he's getting now is long overdue.
Just thinking about it, Do you think there's a chance that we see Chloe Zhao and Lee Isaac Chung in the Best Director category, and we have two Asian American filmmakers up for Best Director?
It's possible. It's
That would be
possible.
great.
Zhao's definitely getting nominated, and Lee
Yeah.
Isaac Chung's right in the mix with a bunch of people. So, yeah. And that's the
I
thing,
mean,
like, Minari did get a SAG Ensemble nomination. If it's a won that,
mhm.
all bets are off in terms of what Minari could achieve. So,
I
TBD on that still.
if we get back to back films that are considered like Asian foreign films in some sense winning Best Film, I mean that'd be unbelievable.
Well, that's the thing. It's like no planning of mine, but my last three number one movies of the year are speak the main language is Korean. Burning, Parasite, and now Minari.
Hmm.
Just the movies I see. It is what it is.
So it's interesting that we've kind of seen foreign films do that, where like Mexico for a while had such a run with
That's right.
like Roma and uh,
Shape of Water.
yeah, Guillermo del Toro and all those. So yeah, interesting. So we'll be tracking that. But that does it for us this week, Dave. What should the people be watching for next week?
Yeah, so this week coming up, we got a lot of stuff to discuss. The WandaVision finale, probably the most high profile of them all. Also, the long awaited Coming to America with Eddie Murphy on Amazon. Um, Ryan the Last Dragon on Disney Plus. The Mauritanian hits VOD. You can watch that Golden Globe winning performance from Jodie Foster if you wish.
Shout out Aaron Rodgers.
Also,
Yeah.
some music and more movies. So there's plenty to discuss. We'll be piecing our way through that.
Watch Ted Lasso. We'll see you next week.